Just like many other terms, when you're multiplying, they don't actually need to be the same in order to be multiplied. But you do need to line up the corresponding parts. So for example, the 3 and the 8 are both under the radical symbol. So when you multiply them together under the radical symbol. Sometimes your final answer needs to be simplified, however, because the square root of 24 can be broken up into 4 and 6, which I do like because the square root of 4 is 2. It gets kicked out, and I'm left with the 6. So even though the instructions were to multiply, ultimately our goal is always to simplify as much as possible. With this second example, again, we want to line up the corresponding parts. The 2 and the 9 are what I call outside of the house. So when I multiply, they stay outside of the house. The y and the 3y are both inside of the house. So again, when I multiply, they stay inside of the house. Once I'm here, you always want to check. I can simplify this y squared. What is the square root of y squared? It's y, and that y is going to get kicked out to the front, which gets multiplied by the 18, and I'm left with just the square root of 3. So here we are going to distribute, okay? It's still multiplying. It's just multiplying more than once. So technically this 4 is a whole number. He is outside of the house, right? He is not under the radical. So when I multiply, the 4 is on the outside, and then I have the square root of 6. The second distribution, both the 6 and the 3 are inside the house. So that's just going to become the square root of 18. I do want to rewrite this, though, because that can be simplified. 9 times 2. The square root of 9 is 3. So, and this should be a radical. So my final answer is 4 square root of 6 plus 3 square root of 2. There's nothing else I can do with that. They are not like radicals. I cannot make them any smaller. That's all. That's as far as we can go. With this one, square root of 2 and square root of 8 are both inside. So I'm going to get the square root of 16. That 4 is on the outside, so he stays. And then I'm going to distribute again. 2 times 10, so I get negative square root of 20. Both of these I can simplify. The square root of 16 is 4. So that 4 gets kicked out to the front. 4 times 4 gives me a whole number 16. And 20 can actually be simplified to 4 times 5. Once you're here, the square root of 4 is 2. That 2 gets kicked out to the front, and I'm left with 16 minus 2 square root of 5. These are definitely not like terms, so that's as far as we can go with that one. We have 2 more examples here, and it's still like distributing. It's just distributing twice, right? It's like we're foiling. So you just want to do one thing at a time. Square root of 3 times square root of 6 is the square root of 18. Square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 9. Then I'm going to come back for the square root of 5 times the square root of 6 gives me the square root of 30. And the square root of 5 times the square root of 3 gives me the square root of 15. You want to simplify what you can. 18 can be broken up into 9 times 2. The square root of 9 is 3. There are no factors of 30 that can be square rooted, so I'm going to leave it. I'm actually going to leave this one as well. This square root of 9 becomes 3. So my final answer actually has multiple terms, and none of them match. So yes, you're just writing it out. Actually, let me move this over some. So we have 3 square root of 2 plus the whole number 3 plus the square root of 30 plus the square root of 15. So yeah, it's not pretty, but we don't care. Okay, let's do this last one. I have the whole number 1 times the square root of 5. So that's just going to be the square root of 5. I have 1 times negative 3. So it's just negative 3. Then I have the square root of 6 times the square root of 5. So that's the square root of 30. And then I have the square root of 6 times negative 3. So minus 3 square root of 6. I cannot simplify any of these. None of these are like terms. So again, it's an ugly answer, but we don't care. Let's look at one more problem just so you can see they look different, but it's all the same. So here, the square root of x minus 2 is one singular term. Okay, so when I FOIL or distribute, that whole thing is getting multiplied. So whenever you have the same exact radical being multiplied by the same exact radical, the radicals actually cancel and you're just left with x minus 2. So for that first distribution, I'm going to just move this down, you're left with x minus 2. The next one, the negative 4 is on the outside of the house, and then we're just going to write square root of x minus 2. Then I have 3 times the square root of x minus 2. And I have 3 times negative 4. So I got a lot going on, but it's not that bad. These two right here are like terms. They become negative 1 square root of x minus 2. I'm just going to bring the other stuff down so you can kind of see what happens. I also see I have a negative 2 here and a negative 12. I can put those together. So I end up with x minus 1 times the square root of x minus 2. And then negative 2 and negative 12 give me negative 14. None of these are like terms. I can't do anything else. That would be my final answer.